Hi, this is Real Men Unscripted with Derek and Jerry. We hope you enjoy this podcast.
Hey, welcome back to Real Men Unscripted. I'm Derek.
And I'm Domingo. Welcome back.
Different name because Jerry's recording.
Jerry's taking a hiatus.
Yeah, my guest for part 2 again is Domingo Lucero, retired 25-year veteran from Las Vegas Metro Police, plus my fellow Army veteran. And so now we talked about you running from ghosts and stuff, and and you were an FTO.
Yes.
Now, you know, Metro's a pretty big police department. You know, like I know they're not as big as New York, but they're way bigger than the old department I worked at.
Yeah.
So would you say there's guys like you? There's no way you knew everybody working at that department, right?
No, definitely not.
Because there's what at the time you were there, how many 3,000?
At the time I was there, when I first started, there was about 2,000 of us.
So we had like
officers.
60. So I knew all of our deputies, right? But there's no way you can know 2,000 officers.
No, there's definitely no way.
So did you ever during your time ever pull over anyone that actually worked for Metro? Like they'd badge you and say, "Hey, I'm a Metro officer."
Oh yeah, I pulled over a lot of Metro cops.
And then you just let them go,
Yeah.
even if they were
No.
drunk or anything.
No.
No.
No, it's just, they trying to get home, a little bit of speeding or whatever.
Yeah.
Which
Which is not uncommon for us to give breaks to other people that have speeding.
And that's the only reason I do it. I give breaks to normal people, and I give breaks to any law enforcement, and I definitely give breaks to any veterans. If you're a veteran, then you're gonna get a break from me.
Except certain crimes you can't get breaks.
Well, definitely, like
but
DUI,
infraction stuff
yes.
you could.
Anything that.
Well, they don't call them infractions here in Vegas. In California, they'd be infractions, but
moving
violations here in Nevada, you would give them a break.
Yeah, I wasn't a ticket guy. For all of you out there was no quota. You gave.
There
tickets.
still is no quota.
Yeah, there's still no quota. So I was never a ticket guy.
Okay.
I was more of a handle calls, because my theory was if someone calls the police, they want the police there like now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't want to wait an hour, 2 hours, whatever the wait time is nowadays. I'm not saying it's an hour, 2 hours. I'm just exaggerating a little bit, but wait times have been rising.
Right.
So my thing was always like, if someone calls, then I took this job to be there for whatever it was. Cat out the tree, speak to my 10-year-old son, whatever it was. I wanted to be there, be the first one, handle the call. So that was always my idea of it. Besides when I was an FTO, then obviously my first focus was on training the new cop.
And with the FTOs, we talked about where you've wanted people let go and they don't. But
Yeah.
So during these 25 years, so we lost a deputy, Ricky Del Florentino, in 2014. He was shot and killed inside his car by a homicide suspect out of Oregon. So this last, I think it was Memorial Day weekend, I went to Washington, D.C. I told you I was going there, and, they have their names on a wall there, everyone that's was killed in line of duty. And you can take a piece of paper and edge their name out. And so I did that for Ricky, and then I did some names for you.
Yes.
So during your 25 years, you've had, I'm sure, Metro's had some officers that have passed, right? So talk about that. Like, how does that, affect you during the time when you have officers that, pass away, and how does it affect the department? How did it affect you? And how many officers have you lost on the 25 years you were there?
Unfortunately, I've lost count. But I would say that early on in my career, we didn't really lose too many cops. We lost a couple cops that I was aware of. There was a Sergeant Prentice, that got shot during a domestic violence. I didn't know him that well, but he was a believer, and he always carried his Bible with him in his car.
Mm.
They did his service at Central. His wife got out there and spoke. It was powerful, moving. So he was the closest that I knew that passed away early in my career. There were some other people, guys that passed away. You know, one guy was going to Laughlin. He worked a jail over there or something, and he hit the back of a semi truck, something to that effect. There was an accident,
Mm.
and he lost his life, but I didn't know him that well. And then one of our search and rescue guys was doing something at Mount Charleston, and then I don't know how he passed away, but he ended up passing away from an accident on the mountain. And then one of our search and rescue guys stayed there with him until the morning time when they can extract his body. So that was the kind of my exposure where, yes, he's a brother. He's wears the same uniform, but I didn't know him that well. But the last 10, 15 years of my career, it's just been what felt like every month. Every month we were losing someone. You know, and it all started around like 1 October, the Route 91 concert. I lost a good friend of mine, Charleston Hartfield. He wasn't actually in uniform. He was actually there with his wife, and I don't know if it was family or friends, but he was attending the concert. And while the shooting was going on, he was trying to like get them to safety when he took a bullet.
Mm.
And unfortunately, he didn't make it. Like I said, I knew him really well, and then I knew his son because my son and his son both played football at Coronado High School.
And most departments, because he was off duty, probably would not have called that in line
On duty,
on
yeah,
duty
in the
or
line of duty.
in the line of duty shooting. But thankfully, because believe it or not, for the family, if you're going to die, it's best if it's on the job because they can get more benefits than if they are off the job, right?
Yes.
So it was great that the sheriff, I think that was Lombardo at the time,
Yes.
did that.
Sheriff Lombardo.
So that was great that now he's Governor Lombardo. Glad that he did that for the family because, like I said, most of the time that probably wouldn't happen. So Route 91, for people that don't know what that was, it was a shooting at Mandalay Bay, October 1 of 2017. Where I'm not even going to say the gentleman's name because I don't want to promote him. Killed now, the numbers have gone up because people were injured that
Are dying from their
that have
injuries,
died
yes.
from their injuries, but I think it's up to 54, 55 people, and then injured. I think it totals up to I don't know, 200-300. I could
Yeah,
be off
couple
on my
hundred.
numbers, a lot of people. And so, although you weren't there the initial night, you and I was home sleeping. My son Marcus was working security at UNLV, so he was there to bring a bunch of people. They weren't sure if they were victims or witnesses or whatever because they were shipping them all to UNLV. But you were there the next day.
Yes.
What was your role in this Route 91?
Well, the day it happened, I remember it because my daughter called me, and she's out and about, and then wherever she was at, she's like, "Dad, what's going on?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what's going on?" Like, people are getting out of cars bleeding. And I'm like, "Whoa, what are you talking about? People are getting out of cars bleeding." So we had a little interaction. I said, "You know what? Just get home. Just get home." So then I talked to my two sons, and then I told them, "You guys got to get home." You know, because I wasn't gonna leave my house until I knew three of my kids were home safe. So it kind of took a few minutes for them to get home. At that time, our sergeant called us, and he's like, "Hey, be ready. We might get activated." You know, and then they kind of explained the situation, what was going on. But by that time, you could already see it on the news and on the internet, what was going on, shooting Mandalay Bay, from Mandalay Bay towards a concert venue across the street. So this guy was shooting across at that venue. So then we keep calling him like, "Dude, come on, like, we got to get activated." You know, and it was kind of a mess because, and we learned a lot of lessons from it because guys were just heading there instead of waiting for the call. So now you don't know who's there, you don't know who's doing what, you know. And back then we used to train just us. You know, if you had a squad, you train with just your guys.
All right.
You know, we've gone away from that.
since then, you now do training.
Yeah,
like,
you
because
train
when I
with
worked at
everybody.
UNLV,
Exactly.
we would train, with
Metro,
you guys, things like that.
NHP, Henderson,
So
Northtown.
now everybody's training.
Everybody's cross-trained and everybody's trained the exact same way. Nobody has doing it.
Although the shooting we just had at UNLV, we still had people showing up
Yes.
with their ARs, and they had at least their badge on. But instead of going to a post, they kind of were just running on
shooter.
campus.
Exactly.
And
that's the problem we have, because there's friendly fire. You got to watch out for friendly fire. So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of people like me who was off, but I didn't go, that went there. Instead, our squad, we had a decent sergeant, and he kind of, we did a lot of training before he became our sergeant. So we were already kind of like squared away, per se. So we already knew, wait for the call. Being former military, you don't do anything until they call you.
Right.
So, you're being disciplined, and then you wait and you keep calling them like, dude, like, and a couple of our guys went to the station, and they posted there in case something happened. I'm 10 minutes from the station. So it's like, why am I going to go there? I'm going to wait for all my family to get home. And then one thing led to another, and then he calls us, and they say, stand down. So we stand down, and then everybody that showed up gets to take the day off the next day, and then we take over for them. So our squad got assigned Sunrise Hospital.
And that was the main hospital that they were bringing
most of the victims went
right?
to Sunrise.
Okay.
Yes. So I get there, and then I get assigned the makeshift morgue at the Sunrise Hospital. So I have to take these people into the morgue so they can identify their loved ones.
Now, prior to this, so sheriff's office back in California, we were coroners, right, as our job. So we went on every death unless it was a hospice case. So I'd seen, I don't know how many dead people. Prior to this, how many have you seen dead people? Did you guys ever go on calls with dead people? And because what people don't know, Metro has their own coroner's unit, right?
Not Metro.
Metro doesn't have.
No, Clark,
there's a
Clark County has
Clark
their
County
own
has their
yes.
own. So basically, Metro doesn't have a.
No, we don't have no corners.
So we were our coroners, right? So we would go to those. You guys wouldn't as officers. So they would go to dead people, calls that had to do with dead people. So had you, prior to this, had you been on many death calls?
Yes. Like
Okay.
the only deaths we don't go to are, like you said, hospice and hospitals.
Okay.
Unless it's suspicious, we don't go. But any other death, the coroner will not go until we go.
Is that so you can clear the scene and then they
Clear
come
the
and they
scene
take
and
over?
see if it's suspicious or not.
And you don't do the bagging, tagging, they take over.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So because back home we bag it, tag it with the mortuary, and then take it. They take it to the mortuary, but we do it all.
Yeah, no, we don't do any of that.
Okay.
The Clark County Coroner's Office does that.
So now you're in charge of getting these family members
Yes.
to identify. How was that? Because it's hard probably not to cry or
yes,
get
it was one of the
teary-eyed.
worst days of my life.
Okay.
To be honest, because there was a couple law enforcement people that were amongst the group. Charleston Harfield was one of them, and when we got
Like
there,
a guy from California.
no, he's a guy from our department.
Right, but there was one.
Yeah, there was a
California?
guy from California, LA County Sheriff, something, and then a young lady. I don't know what department she was from. I think it was Florida. Don't quote me. But there was a couple of people from law enforcement that hadn't been claimed yet. And then we had Charlie, and as we get there, like they're leading him out, and just to see that was like my eyes got watery and tears are coming down, because we do the whole line thing and then, do the whole convoy with him. And it was kind of sad because I couldn't partake because I got to stay at the hospital.
You're at a post.
Exactly.
So
have to stay other officers went with him, and what they do is they follow him all the way to the coroner's office. And then once he gets to the coroner's office, then everybody breaks off, and then obviously we have the memorial, the funeral, where we have the procession for that as well. So seeing him leave kind of just broke my heart because we had just found out. I don't even know. I want to say right before I tried to go to bed, they told me that he was one of the victims. And it was another friend of ours that told our little group in our little group chat. So that was heartbreaking for me, knowing that he was one of the victims.
So how many families did you have to? So you're is anyone with them besides you for them to do the identification?
Yes,
or-
a nurse comes in with
Okay.
the family, and then leads them to whatever victim is
Okay.
belongs to their family, and everybody else is covered. And I'm just there that so
So do you have to write anything down that they identify for
no,
paperwork wise?
that was all the
So-
hospital. Yeah, the
okay.
hospital. I was just there so that you don't know how people grieve.
Right. Right.
Some people are gonna jump on them and not want to let them go. And we can't really have that based on where we were at, the little
Sure.
morgue we were in. And we were trying to get the people identified as quickly as possible so they can be released to.
So you're there
family
all day.
all day. Well, once we identified everybody, then they wanted me to escort our criminalistics people. So anybody that was injured, I had to go with the criminalistics person to take pictures of the
Was that at
person.
UNLV? Were
No,
they
that
still
was
there?
at Sunrise.
At Sunrise
So
still.
I went through the whole building. Whoever was injured there, we took pictures. And then if there was no statements that they had done or they were able to give statements this morning, then I had to get statements from them. So it was a long day, and it was just to see all the hurt and the pain and the suffering. It just kind of broke my heart.
Was that something that ultimately helped with your decision to retire? Or
No, not really. It
because
actually
you retired shortly after that, right? Or a couple of years
No.
after that? No.
probably 5 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it actually
Well, that was in 2017, and you
Yeah,
retired.
2022.
Okay. I guess it was 5 years.
Yeah, and it
Okay.
actually made me want to stay longer because,
Okay.
as I said before, like something happening on your watch doesn't sit well with me. Like that was my whole mantra. Like nothing's gonna happen on my watch. Nobody's gonna die. Nobody's gonna get robbed. No car's gonna get stolen. Like if it happened in my little area, I was gonna figure out who did it. And I lived my entire career that way. Like nothing's gonna happen on my watch. So that's how and I was at my area for probably 18 years. Yeah, 18 years in my area. So I knew a lot of the people there. I knew a lot of the players. So
Now, what about when I first moved here, we heard about the CC, I think that's
CC's
what it was called,
Pizza.
CC Pizza,
Pizza shooting.
officers
Yeah.
that died. Did you know them as well?
yes, I knew Officer Alan Beck.
Okay.
I didn't know his partner. He was a younger officer. But Alan Beck was
And
One of
he's
the-
one of the name. Those
Yes.
were those guys are
yes
what you had me scroll along with what was
Hartfield
Hartfield.
and Phil Closey.
So you had me do. I think I did 4 or 5
Yeah.
at the wall for you. So you've have seen officers pass away, and then recently your son knew someone that was an officer that took his own life, right?
Yes.
And he worked for Metro.
Yeah, he played football with him. It was his starting left tackle, and he was having domestic issues. And he just decided this was his easy way out.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of my son. My son is not like read into whatever the stories are because he knows him. He personally knew him, and this kid like kind of mentored him in
And he
high school.
probably could have got help and got through
Oh, definitely.
whatever charges he was looking at, right?
Definitely.
I mean, they try to, when you have an alcohol problem or drug problem, whatever, they try to give you chances at least to kind of before they just fire you, right?
Yeah.
Unless
No,
it's
he-
totally
he-
criminal. But if
yeah.
you're asking for help, they usually will try to get you help.
There's a lot of help out there. It's just, the whole macho profession we're in, firefighters, police, military, they don't like asking for help.
Right.
Like I just had one of my trainees, really good guy. I love this kid. And he just did the same thing a couple of years ago. Actually, no, last year. So it's just like I'm just seeing it more often and often, and it's like, the help is there. There's the stigmatism of this whole mental health needs to go away. If we're
I
gonna
mean, you
solve
guys
this.
have like peer support and all that,
Yes.
right? I mean, almost every department does.
Mhm.
So, but cops tend to not want to.
Yeah,
get
they
help,
don't.
right?
They don't seek help. They think they can do it on their own or at the bottom of a bottle, and it's just happening too often. It's just a sad situation.
And so now that you're retired, is there anything you like? Do you ever think about, oh, I want to volunteer doing something still with Metro or anything, or you want like you don't want nothing to do with Metro anymore? Like you're
No.
like, I'm done, I'm out. I mean,
I'm done with Metro. Like as far as that goes, I know there was this rumor that they were gonna hire some of these veteran guys back because they're not getting enough people to fill the ranks or whatever. I told the wife and she squashed it right away. So it was
and
like,
I've tried to bring you over to the Marshals,
yeah,
and you don't want that.
nope,
We got a lot of Metro guys that work
yeah,
there,
they go
as
there,
CLS, because they still get their retirement
yeah,
plus their pay.
and then
or,
they go to the constable's office. You know, a lot of them work for a Legion or the casinos, and I'm done with that chapter in my life. I think I want
You're like
to.
my brother. You never want to put another uniform on.
I wouldn't mind a uniform, just not a law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
You know.
But you don't want to really work anywhere. You have, I mean, now your wife and you are traveling to different states a lot.
Oh yeah, we try to get out of here at least once or twice a month. You know, go see family, and friends that
And
live
there's
on the
been
East
some
Coast.
deaths in the family recently, so you guys
Yes.
have had to travel for that. And
Yes.
so, but other than that, life, retirement's good.
Oh, I love retirement.
Um,
I should have left early. I don't know how Jerry's working again. Oh, you gotta be crazy, Jerry. I know what it is. You need the money for all them Air Jordans.
So-
I don't wear Air Jordans, so I don't need a job.
So do you, if people come up to you, and say, "Oh man, I want to get in law enforcement," do you try to, like, I try to talk people out of it and tell them to, go fire or something, just because the disrespect that we, nowadays that cops get is way different than back in the day. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's bad cops out there, but we get lumped up. Would you say, I don't want to speak for you, I'll let you speak. So, what about your interactions with people? Were you there during like all the BLM stuff and all
Yes.
that?
Yeah, I was a part of all that during my entire career. You know, the racism and every cop's a bad cop, even within my own family. You know, there's been a few family members that have said, I don't trust cops, I don't like cops.
But you're like, I mean, we have a lot in common, right?
Yes.
Army, police. We both have a brother that is the cops, or what, mine's retired, but so you have a brother that's a cop. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we got, both from California. We got a lot in common.
Yeah.
So
Scary.
yeah, I mean, really might be from another mother. So, but you've seen, the difference of how you were treated when you first got into law enforcement and towards the end. So when someone comes up to you and says, so let's start with your kids first. Did your boys ever say, "Dad, I want to be a police officer like you"?
My oldest is the only one that kind of like was geared towards becoming a police officer. And, he's a big, strong kid, but he's a nice kid. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have that mean streak that I think you need, but policing is changing. You don't need that mean streak like we did back then.
Right.
And that was the culture back then. Because when I hired on, like, granted, I policed in 4 different decades, the 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020s. So there was a progression there where when I hired on, like, nobody disrespected you. You told somebody to get in front of the car and they spread their arms out and they walked to the front of your car. That's just the way, the respect that they gave the officers before me.
Sure.
And now, like, right before I left, these guys are walking in between you and the person you have stopped. And they'll walk right in between as you're talking to this person, and they'll come up 5 feet from you and, just start yelling gibberish at you and all these
And they're
sovereign,
recording, which
yeah,
is
all
their
these
right.
sovereign citizens, exactly.
Yeah.
So the policing's changed in those 4 decades. And I think that is what kind of made me feel like, you know what? Every single year feels like I gotta adjust and I gotta adjust and I gotta adjust. So it's like, I'm tired of this. Like, can I still do the job? Yes. But do I want to? And
Did
that was
you
the bottom line.
retire prior to the Floyd incident,
The
or
who?
after the Floyd death? The
Oh, no,
officer
it was
shaved-
after.
You retired after
After,
that?
yeah.
Okay. All right.
But, yeah, it was
So
it's-
your son, so none of my kids wanted to go, in law enforcement. One's now an attorney, but
yeah.
so Kevin wanted to, but you told him, hey, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Go. Did you tell him go fire? Or
Yes.
Is that what kind of?
Well, actually, we wanted him to go to law school.
Okay.
You know, he got a criminal justice degree in Reno, came here. A friend of mine's wife, he's a detective. His wife works for an attorney. So she was willing to bring him on as a clerk. But he also had a friend that he played football with. And his dad's an attorney here.
Not the friend that just killed him.
No.
different
This
guy.
is a
Okay.
different friend. So his friend has an attorney. So he actually went one day there and he did not like it. So he's like, no, Dad, I can't do this. So then that's when I geared him towards the fire department, helping people.
And
EMT.
they both were ambulance.
Yes,
Uh,
for community ambulance.
and
Yeah.
then now they're trying
And now
to do.
one's
fire.
in the academy, and Kevin's gonna have to retest and try again.
Yeah, he'll get it. He'll get
Yeah.
it.
But to answer your question, Jerry actually came to me also saying he was interested in becoming a police officer.
Yeah.
And
he
you can
was
tell
thinking
Jerry,
about-
I did not gear him away from it. I didn't talk.
that mean streak.
You did or didn't?
I
try-
did not. I said
try to
whatever
talk
you
him.
feel.
I told him not to.
I said whatever you feel. Like me personally, I wouldn't go through it again. But like I said, policing's changed, and we need more. Like I told him, we need more people like him.
But
know?
did you want to be a cop? Like I was 12 when my bike was stolen. That's when I went to become a cop. So like I didn't smoke weed, do any drug. Like I thought you couldn't do any of those stuff to be a cop. Now I'm finding out you could do a bunch of stuff. But anyhow, like, did you want to be a cop
Yeah,
when you were young?
That's all I wanted to do. The
Okay.
military. I wanted to be a soldier, and I would have stayed in, but had some clashes with some people there. So I left, and then policing was my next step. That's all I wanted to do. Like there was nothing else in my heart that I wanted to do but be a police officer.
Well, it's definitely a good retirement, right?
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that, and then you're helping people, and then the bottom line, you're not making anybody rich.
Yeah.
If you work for a Legion, you're making them rich. You work for the Raiders, you're making Mark Davis rich. So I just the idea of me making someone rich off of my blood, sweat, the concrete construction, like that tore me up. I'm like, man, you're giving me $10 an hour, and I'm out here slowly concrete. Like it didn't sit well with me. I wanted to get a job where I'm helping people and I'm earning what I deserve.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't get paid enough. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Cops, firefighters, paramedics, doctors,
Teachers.
teachers especially, they do not get paid enough. Not in this town anyway.
All right, so it's come to that time again
Story time.
where it's story time.
Story time.
So last story, if you heard part one, he's running from ghosts. So what kind of story you got this? I mean, you
Oh, I
said you
totally
had tons
forgot.
of stories. So
Oh, I have a ton of stories.
what about
I have military. I have military stories.
No,
I
no,
have
no.
South
I want a
Central,
cop
South
story.
Central LA stories.
No, I want a cop story, but make it like doesn't have to be group. Okay. Have you ever had to shoot anyone?
No.
Have you
Not,
ever
not
shot
as a
at
police
anyone?
officer. No.
Okay. Have you ever had to taser anyone?
I never tasered somebody,
Oh my gosh! You went
but I mean,
baton,
baton, yes, one time.
pepper spray.
Pepper spray
Okay.
one time.
All
See,
right.
all the tools on your belt, I wanted to use one time. The only one I didn't use on a subject,
You only used it one time.
Yeah.
Wow.
except my firearm, I never used it on a person.
Dang.
But I always I had all these tools, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try it once, see what it feels like. Right. So my baton, I have a rookie. I'm a trained officer.
Is this the story?
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a story for each one, for each tool we have.
Okay.
So this is the baton story, right? So I have my trainee, right? It's a car, Bonanza and Lamb apartment complex. Pull them over, right? You got two males in the front seat, right? So I'm talking to the driver. He's on the passenger side, right? So the driver, I could see he's uncomfortable, and he's keeps talking to me 100 miles per hour. So obviously they've already scoped it out that this guy's a rookie and I'm not, right? So he's talking to me, trying to get my attention, and I'm looking at my partner, and then just like that, as he's talking to me, I look up, and the guy opens the door, pushes my partner, and takes off running. Right? So I immediately point to him. I was like, dude, you better not go anywhere. You better stay right there. right? So he takes off after him, and then I run after him. Well, he's in front, but then I pass him. You know, my younger days, I was pretty fast. So I run past him, and then the guy's running, and he made a mistake. He ran against the wall. And I don't know if you guys seen the apartment complexes, but they got those little, like, the stucco or whatever. It's like sandpaper, right? So I'm like, ooh, I gotcha. So I'm running, so I hit him against the wall, scratch him all up. He falls, right? And he's a big guy. He's a solid 230, around 230, 235, just a solid guy, right? So then I get on top of him, and he does a push-up with me on top. I'm like, whoa. And my partner's no skinny guy. And he falls on top of me, and we can't get this guy down. And I'm like, oh, man, what are we going to do here? So then I don't know if they train you the same way, but it's like the table. You take one of the legs off. So I grab his arm, take it off, boom, fall on the ground. So I roll off with him. My partner falls on top of him, get out my baton, right? He gets on all fours, about ready to run, and he gives me a nice target on his thigh, the back of his thigh. So I rear back with my baton, and I smack him on the thigh, and the baton curves.
Were you back then? Were you using a straight or
Straight,
a PR
expandable straight baton.
Expandable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that thing just bent. So I just threw it. He starts running again. We get him on the ground again, and I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do here? But by that time he was winded. So I'm like, oh, thank God. So we were able to get him into custody, and then I look at my baton. I still have it at home, and that thing was like almost a perfect U. I was like, whoa. And then, we did a search warrant. He's an ex-felon. He had hid a gun under the seat. So he was trying to get to the gun. But because I didn't focus all my attention on the driver and kept directing my attention to him, because with us, only one person can talk. Both people can't talk. The other guy's your cover guy, and one's the contact guy. So I kept directing him like, hey, dude, stop fiddling. Stop moving. What are you doing? What are you doing? So, and he found out, I guess he was either trying to put it in or he was trying to get it out, but he couldn't. And then that's when he ran.
So he was the passenger, right?
Yes, passenger.
So passenger leaves. I mean, why not just let the passenger go? I mean, the driver's who you pulled over for something, right?
Yes.
For a violation, but now you're leaving the driver there.
You have probable cause on the driver.
Right.
Right.
For so why bother the?
Because he's running. So he's running for a reason. Nobody just runs for no reason. Right. So now we have reasonable suspicion. Why are you running? Right. And there's three things. You either committed a crime, you were about to commit a crime, or you had already committed a crime. So that's our reason for chasing him. The driver stayed there, and he stayed there throughout the whole thing. We went back, gave him his ticket, and he gone.
You still gave him a ticket?
Yeah, gave him a ticket, towed his car.
Gave him a break.
Nope. We towed his car.
Since he stayed there.
And we actually, my rookie did the first search warrant as a rookie. He did a search warrant on the car for the gun.
Wow.
So that was pretty good. And then the taser story, me and my partner, the one with the old guy. So we got this domestic female locks herself in the bathroom. She's not coming out, right? So we're trying to get her out, trying to coax her out. She's not listening. So then I boot the door in, and I'm about to go hands-on with her, and my partner decides to deploy the taser. So I'm lucky that I went over the top and the bottom of my arm because they come out at an angle.
Yeah.
So as I grab her, but then I touch the probe, and I mean, that shock was like, ah! So that's when I said, I'm never going to use this taser again. And I've never used it.
Well, the new ones are a little better.
Yeah, they're a little bit better. But yeah, and you were scared to touch her because you're like, man, is this thing going to shock me again?
Right.
Like, no. And then where it landed is like, okay, how do we get this thing out? Because all she had was like a tight shirt on. I'm like, I'm not touching that. I'm like, not going to pull this thing out, and when we first got him, the training was not as detailed because now, they show you how to put your hand and then you have a white little tool and it pulls it out for you or whatever. So that didn't really play in our mind. It was like, okay, how are we going to do this with where it's at? Same thing with now certain parts, we have to call medical to come and remove it instead of us removing it, like private parts, facial. Right. So that's a good thing, because nowadays anything can happen and anybody can say any complaint. So that was that. And then the pepper spray, same partner, the one with the elderly male and the taser. So we get this guy, get him in front of the car. He starts fighting. and I'm trying to get him into custody. So I lean into him, and without him telling anybody, he goes around and he tries to spray the guy in the face. Well,
First,
the guy,
he's too close to
yes,
probably do that.
and the guy moved his head and he got me instead. So I disengaged. I'm like, "You're on your own, dude." And I went over there, snot and crying and spit, and he was on his own with this guy.
My partner did that once.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I mean, it was the most horrible feeling in the world, you know. And then in the academy, another little funny story. In the academy, I didn't, you know, I'm from the military. We don't have pepper spray, right? So it's a joke, you know. They don't tell you not to touch your private parts after you get pepper spray. So they line us up, they pepper spray you, and then you go to the bathroom, wash it off. Well, dummy me, I go to use the urinal. So I get a little bit on that, and it's like,
Well, it's little anyhow.
burning.
So it
Yeah, that's
doesn't
true.
matter, but
It's a burning sensation, and it's like, whoa, what is going on here? So yeah, I mean, that's way too many stories, right?
yeah.
That's 3. Now I gotta save some for any other times you invite me
Yeah.
back.
All right. Well, I just want to thank Domingo for coming on both part 1 and part 2. And again, hit the like, share button. You'll hear a little ding because Jerry does a cool little ding ding, and share it with your friends and family. And until the next one, Real Men Unscripted.
Thank you
Peace.
for having me here. Peace.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
night.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to Real Men Unscripted with Derek and Jerry.